Alright guys, what's going on? Tonight, let's talk about finding work abroad, about the scam which consists of just telling people to go out there, move to a country and to find work locally. Let's talk about this scam. You know, I see some YouTubers online basically selling the country they have moved to. They moved to a country and they're now selling this country to other people and just saying, come to this country, you will find work locally, don't worry. This is a scam. I can tell you, as a international multicultural person who has lived in 7 different countries, this is a scam, okay? It's not that easy. It's not that easy to find work abroad. Otherwise, everybody would just move like that, in a snap of a finger, in a blink of an eye. Of course it's difficult. Of course it's not that easy. So don't fall for this trap. I'm gonna explain you why. Finding work abroad means you will most likely need to master a new language. I'm gonna go into details later. You will need to master a new language. You will need to understand the local culture, the local mentality. Culture and mentality are 2 different things. They may seem similar, but they are not, okay? You will need to understand the local market, the job market, okay? The local demand, which can be very different from the country you are from, all right? It's not that easy. Unless you are that very rare, difficult to find, sought after professional, nobody can find everywhere. And then companies can make some compromises and allow you to work in your native language only, or in English, most likely in English, and be very tolerant, you know, towards who you are and towards, you know, your language abilities and your not understanding of the local culture, okay? But most of you, I would say 99.99% of people who are watching this video, or will watch this video rather, are not this kind of person. These kind of persons are very rare, okay? So if you are just an average Joe, or just like me, or just, you know, somebody who is fed up with its country and wants to move to another country, and you're not, you know, that very fancy, sought after, rare professional, how do you do? It's not that easy. If you're coming from a English-speaking country, which you most of you guys are, most of my audience here is from the US, Canada, Australia, for some reason. You can, in some countries, still get by and still work in English only. For example, if you're moving to the Netherlands, or to Norway, or to Denmark, or to Sweden, these are countries where people tend to be quite proficient in English. Most people there are fluent in English. They will at least be able to understand you and to get their point across in English, okay? And sometimes you will be able to find a job, just by speaking English. Because you are, again, a person who that's difficult to find there. A professional is difficult to find, okay? But even there, if you're not that super professional, very sought after, super rare professional, which you are most likely not, even there you will most likely find, you know, a pretty basic job there if you speak English only. But if you want to thrive there, if you want to become a manager, if you want to be able to launch a business there, or to thrive, to grow locally, and to be taken seriously after a few years, if you want to settle down there, you will need to speak the local language. So it means learning the language. So when it comes to Dutch, Norwegian, Swedish or Danish, it's easier because these languages are still quite closely related to English. I don't speak Norwegian or Swedish, but I do speak Dutch. So it will be easier. And these are countries where it makes sense to work locally. Living in the Netherlands and working locally makes sense, you know. The wages are still quite good. Okay, now of course the cost of living is getting higher. People are struggling. Some people, especially the newbies, are struggling there as well. At least they don't live the great life. You won't live the American dream anymore there, so to speak. But it still makes sense. It makes sense to work in a Norwegian company in Norway. You will make okay money. It makes sense to work in Sweden. It makes sense to work in Denmark. The wages are still okay. You will have a pretty good standard of living still. It makes sense to work in France, no matter what some people, especially French people, complain about. In France, people still make, if you are at least, if you have a degree, some good experience, if you are, a professional, you still can make good money here in France. It makes sense to work here if you speak French, which you most likely don't if you're not French. Okay, but here a good example. My wife is not French. My wife is Russian. She's now living in France with me. She's learning French every day. We're helping her with French. Okay, she doesn't speak French well. She can get a point across. She makes a lot of mistakes, of course. She's not fluent in French, okay? But she has a degree. She has a master degree. She is a potentially well sought after professional here in France, okay? She could potentially make good money here in France, working in a company, okay, with her skills. The problem is she doesn't speak French well. Now guess what? She can work locally. She can find work. She's still working online, doing some stuff for a pretty low salary compared to what she could be making now. Okay, why don't they hire her? Why French people don't want to hire her? Because she doesn't speak French enough. They want her to be fluent in French. As soon as they hear an accent or that she's making mixed mistakes in French, they don't bother hire her. So okay, it doesn't work out. Your French is not enough. Okay, and she speaks a little bit of French. She can handle a basic conversation in French, but she's not fluent in French. You know what I'm saying? So if you're moving to a country where English is not widely understood, or worse, where English is not the main language, here in France, most people don't speak English. They suck at English here in France, let alone at other languages. No, they speak Spanish here in the southern France quite well. But anyway, so you will need to learn a local language, and depending on what language we're talking about, this can take up to 3, maybe 5 years, depending on the language we're talking about. So it will take some time to become fluent in a language, and to become fluent in a language, and to be able to work in this language, to be very fluent in this language, you will most likely need to live there. Because in your home country, you can always reach some kind of B2 level, be able to hold a conversation in that language. But if you want to be really fluent in the language, be able to work in this language, have conversations over the phone with clients in that language, talk to clients, understand clients well. Work in a team in French, for example. I'm talking about French. I'm gonna take some other examples later on, but it will take you some time. It will take you some time living here, learning French, and become proficient in the language. So it's not that easy, So it's not just like I'm moving to this country and I will learn French there and I will get a job. No, first you will need to learn French or another language. Okay, so it's not that easy. First the language. The French mentality is different. It's different from the Canadian, American, Australian mentality, because most of you guys come from these countries, are watching me from these countries. So you need to get used to the local work culture, the mentality, okay? And here I'm still talking about the West, about countries where it makes sense to work locally. But now let's talk about the dream destinations. The place to be. Bali, Thailand, and now Russia. People are selling dreams, with Russia nowadays. What a big joke. Okay, you want to move to these countries. But what about the salaries, the local salaries? So first you will need to learn the local language. Do you speak Russian? No. Okay. Do you speak Thai? No. Do you speak, Indonesian? No. Okay. And even if you do master the local language, how much do you get paid there? doesn't really make sense to move there, work locally. In most countries, no, if you're coming from the West. Even moving to Eastern Europe, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, money-wise, only money-wise I'm talking, doesn't make sense. Yeah, sure, it's safer there. Poland is now, a thriving country, one of the best countries in Europe. So is Romania. In Romania, if you don't make money locally, it's a nice place to be. I've been there multiple times and I loved it. Bulgaria has its pros and so on. Even Russia, a conservative country with big, huge cons. I'm gonna maybe talk about in another video. But still, if you are that guy who wants a cheaper country, conservative, okay, I get your point. The Baltic states and so on, okay. But what about working there? What are the wages? Are you ready to earn a few $100 per month? Of course not. Who in their right mind, coming from the West, will agree to make, let's say, 1,000 euros, 1,500 euros if you're lucky, fluent in Russian, and you spend some time there in Moscow, okay? These are still, poverty levels by French standards and homeless levels by American or Canadian levels. Yeah, it was worth it, huh? Or you want to move to the Russian countryside? Okay, you will make around, maybe, if you were fluent in Russian, if you agree to be treated like shit, if you're eager to work hard, maybe, between 300 and 700 euros per month if you're lucky. Was it worth it? Of course not. Who in their right mind, coming from the West, wants to earn less than before? Wants to become poor, basically? Nobody, So no offense to poor people, I'm not the most well-off person in the world either, of course. But everybody wants to thrive. Everybody wants to have a good life. And if you're leaving your country, it's to live a better life. You know what I'm talking about? If you're leaving your place you're in, it's to live better over there. Never forget it. It's and even though cost of living is lower in some countries, and that's why you want to move there, because it's cheaper and safer, it's only cheaper for you coming from the Western world, working remotely. And that's why I keep insisting so much on working remotely, on getting either a sales job, export sales job for a Western company, or becoming an IT specialist, or becoming an online entrepreneur, or YouTuber, for example, or selling courses online, or becoming a coach. Because being location dependent, working remote is the only way to go if you want to enjoy these countries, these cheaper countries. Because working locally doesn't make sense. It will make you a poor man, unless you are that very rare, fancy, difficult to find, sought after specialist nobody can find and everybody wants. So these are the things you have to take into consideration. You don't speak the local language, you don't know the culture, the mentality, the local market, and the wages. What are the local wages? If the local wages suck, it doesn't make sense to work there locally. And in most countries in the world, for us Westerners, these countries offer shitty wages. Okay, you don't want to work locally in Thailand and have a Thai salary. No offense to Thai people, I know they're struggling and so on, but you don't want to earn 500, maybe in Bangkok 1,000 euros per month, because that's what they are making there. You don't want to move to Russia and to become poor. You want to move there if you are making good money online, or you are you have a lot of real estate, you can rent out, or you are already a millionaire. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. No move to Russia now. It's a dictatorship now, but no, you get the idea. You want to move to Brazil. You want to work locally. Doesn't make sense. Do you speak Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese? No. And locally, it's a big mess. I've never been there, but I've talked to plenty of Brazilians, and they told me working locally doesn't make sense. Of course, come with your USDs and enjoy the best Brazil can offer: the girls, the food, and the weather. Not sure at all about the safety there. In fact, I've heard most Brazilians I've met in my life, they told me it's not safe there. Okay, but depending where you go, of course, I'm sure there are safe places as well. But most of the time Brazil is not, it's not a safe place. Let's face it. Okay, we all know that. You know what I'm saying. It's not that easy. So that's why I keep insisting and saying it's the only way to go. Become a location independent. Work remotely. You don't have to be necessarily, a YouTuber or a person working online. I told you, I've worked for years as a remote international sales representative, working remotely, 3,000 and later 11,000 kilometers from the company I was working for. Working remotely, just in my apartment, working from home on my laptop, and I was an employee, So these jobs exist. But unless you have such a job, or you are an online entrepreneur, or you are an investor, real estate investor, and you've got enough cash flow to live a comfortable Western life abroad, don't bother. And don't listen to this, these people saying, yeah, but you don't want to live like a Westerner in Thailand. You don't want to live like a Westerner in Bali. You need to embrace the local culture and live like locals. Bullshit. This is just poor guy cope. Of course you won't. I'm not saying don't experience it, don't try it, but you won't last long. I've lived in these countries. I've lived in the Philippines, in Thailand, and so on. Okay, it's fine to try it for a while, but at the end of the day, what you want is to live a good life in these countries, and living by Western standards there, having a nice condominium with a swimming pool, a car, or going out very often, travel around, and so on, and living a comfortable life there with AC on, because you will need AC there, especially to sleep. It's not cheap. It's not cheap there. You will need to make Western money, or to have a Western-like income. If you work locally, you will live like locals. And no offense to the locals, I know they are struggling and so on. Nothing wrong with that. But you, as a Westerner, used to the Western standards, wanting to leave your country to live a better life abroad, of course you won't. Of course you will need to spend money. And living in these so-called cheaper countries, a good life is not cheap, even in Russia. Okay, living in a small apartment far away and eating Russian food on a daily basis, yes, cheap. You live in a small studio. You eat the local Russian food, the cheapest food. You don't go out often. You don't have a car. You don't travel. You don't want a big house. You don't want kids. Yeah, it's cheap. Yeah, what people say online when they say, you can live here on 1,000 euros per month. Yeah, it's possible, but it is a prisoner life. Once you want to drive a fancy car, build a bigger house, buy some properties, invest locally, have kids, be able to afford good education to your kids, travel, and live in comfort, it's not cheap at all. You will need to earn a Western wage. Okay? And don't compare yourself to local people. Local people, they have connections. They are used to their country. They have time to build up, a career there. They speak the local language at a native level. They understand the culture, the mentality, and so on, You can compete with them. You are a foreigner. And as a foreigner, everything is more difficult. I'm not trying to discourage you. This is a real talk, okay? This is a real talk, no bullshit. Okay? That's the reality. So I'm not saying don't move abroad. Of course, move abroad. I'm gonna move abroad sooner or later again, being an expat, having an international life is a very fulfilling experience, a very nice life to have, But stop saying it's that easy. Stop saying it's buy my course and you will be able to move to abroad like that very easily. No, it's not true. It takes time, a lot of time, energy, and effort. You are most likely to need to learn new skills, or entirely change, your profession, learn a new language, and so on. Take some risks, and come with money. Yeah, sorry, you will need money. When you're moving abroad, you need a security net. Okay, I would say if you have a family, at least have a security net of 50k. At least, I'm talking at least, okay? But don't be that guy that moves, to another country without some cash and no security net. This is dangerous. This is not something I advise to do, okay? Yeah, moving abroad costs money, yeah. If you're broke in your country, yeah, moving abroad doesn't make sense, yeah. Make the money first, and when you have some kind of security, then you can move abroad. May it be, a good job, a good stable job that pays well, or a good business online, or some cash, or something, you can rely on if shit hits the fan abroad. Okay? So no, it's not that easy. It's not that easy, but it is possible. It is possible if you take your time, if you plan it well, if you do the work. It's possible. It's possible, and an experience to live, I think. Even if you don't want to live abroad for your entire life, having lived abroad for a while is something very fulfilling. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself, and at least you can compare to your home country, and you can compare your home country to something else, and be very aware of the pros and the cons of your country. For years I've said France is a very shitty country. France has only cons and so on. I don't want to live in France anymore. Never ever. But I was wrong. Because now I've got some experience abroad. I can compare France to other countries, and I know France has a myriad of cons, and that's why I'm gonna move again sooner or later. I don't know why, maybe I don't know when, maybe in 1 year, 2 years, I don't know. I have some stuff to do here, but France has pros as well. There are good things about France as well. How do I know it? Because I can compare. Every country has its pros and cons, and now I can compare a place to another. So it will make you smarter, more aware. Anyway, if you found this interesting, smash the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Consider it. And in the description you will find some links. You can book a one-on-one call with me if you want to talk about this kind of stuff. You want to move abroad, become an international person, work abroad, become location independent. Yes, it is possible. Yes, it is something great, a great life experience. So yes, it can solve some of your problems. I mean, the problems of the country you're living in. If you can't stand your country anymore, yes, moving to another country can fix some issues. Yes, not everything, but it will require you to work. Okay, it will require you to do some work. It will require you to be patient. Okay. That's the reality, okay? I don't want to be that guy online, that bullshit guy thing. Yeah, it's easy. Buy my course and it will take some time, okay? Especially when it comes to moving abroad, to moving to another country, becoming expatriate. This is serious stuff. This is serious stuff, guys. We are talking about changing your life, okay? It's no joke. It's no joke, okay? Anyway, you can find links below if you want to book your one-on-one call with me. And comment below, what do you think? Are you now living in your home country? Are you planning on moving to another country? Or are you now already an expat? Have you moved to another country? Tell me below what you're at, what your plans are, what your thoughts are. And have a good one. Talk to you soon. We're out.